Okay, hey everybody, this is Brett from Moonstream Crypto. I'm going to do a quick update in the markets. We're going to look at total market cap. Do seem like we're seeing a bit of a rally here, and the overall markets, which would coincide with the cycle lows, the daily cycle lows, which we've been expecting. And so let's go ahead and dive in. We're going to also talk about Bitcoin and Solana, and also some news that are driving these markets. So let's go ahead and dive in. So on this chart here, taking a look at the total market cap here, and of course these big red zones are part of our order block detector, where we visualized where the concentration of buyers and sellers are coming out of a buy zone down here. We saw Bitcoin on a daily time frame wick down into this sort of 2.75 trillion area. The danger there was that not many people realize, but $3 trillion is a very important level. We're back above that. And the reason that that's important is that that was the top of the last market, the exact top of the 2021 market here, 3 trillion to the nose. And we saw that then sell off. Similarly, this cycle, we went up to just a bit of a throw over to 4 trillion and then had this correction. So just note to self, I don't know anyone else talking about this, something I've noticed, that these big round numbers on total market cap are significant. So jumping back to the daily, just actually on the weekly here, we are seeing a possible bottoming. Our trend strength indicator is coming down and oversold, waiting for a green chevron to signal it's bottoming. But we are getting bullish divergence on this weekly with our RSI Pro signal. You can learn more about these at cryptomastery.org. Look for the link in the description. These are the best signals I've ever used, and we've developed them to be that way. They definitely give us an edge. Going back into the daily time frame, seeing the trend strength indicator turning green above 20, that's one of our triggers, and I look for confluence of two of these. Our signal line, which is similar to a MACD, also going green, and on the coming out of a buy zone here. So bullish, we're back above, solidly back above that $3 trillion mark. And similarly, let's take a look at Bitcoin, and then we'll kind of dive into some news and unpack all of what's going on out there and what's been kind of causing this correction. It's some new news has come out and explains a lot of what's happening. So similarly on Bitcoin here, we've had this sort of 40%, 35% correction from the top as all the way down to the wick. And certainly we could go down to the 75K region. I was watching an interview with Pompliano and Matt Siegel of the Van Eck ETFs, right? So suggesting that volatility is about half of what it used to be on Bitcoin. So instead of an 80% correction in this correction or bear market cycle, maybe it's only 40%, and from the top that would put it right down around this area. A 40% correction would be right down into this 75K region. I'll show another chart where I think that that is possible, if not probable. There's some bigger issues there if that happens, and I know there's quite a lot on this chart here, so let me just clear that up for everybody. Sorry for all the spaghetti, but a lot of this is very important. So I don't know. I think we could push up here into this 98K region. Maybe we reject earlier at the 21-day EMA and come back down into this region. But ultimately, lots of buyer support down around that 75K, 74K region. And I'm just going to jump ahead because this we'll come back to that. On this weekly time frame, this shows where the markets have had trouble in the past, and of course the 2021 cycle top, and where we have support. On this multi-year time frame, trend line down below that's held ever since the COVID crash in March of 2020, the 2022 bottom around 16.5. I had correctly forecast that bottom all the way back here in May, publicly on my Facebook, so I have proof of that. A little bit of luck, but you never know. That was a good place to get back in. And we were buying in January of 2023. One of our signals went green and told us that was the time. So anyway, now where are we? We're coming back in, retested here a little bit. September of 23, that was a great time. We were buying coins like Injective and other AI coins right on this September-October range, so caught a lot of that move. And again, the following year, September of 2024, also a great time to be getting in. And so where are we now? What I'm looking for here and a little concerned about is a head and shoulders pattern forming. Could go either way. Moving this out of the way here is just a copy of that over on the left shoulder if that happens. But really important that we hold that 78K, let's call it 75K region. There is a buy zone there. The other reason, though, that I think that would be the low is that Bitcoin's never gone below the price that it was when a new incoming president was inaugurated. So we broke 74K right in here when President Trump was being inaugurated. So I would imagine, and that's why we've retested that. It was previous and prior support and flipped as, resistance through here, flipped as support again in here to get a bounce off of that. Certainly important to maintain market structure with that. If it were to break down below, the measured move from the head and shoulders would be down to around 50K. So I don't know. I have a hard time believing that that's the case. Certainly we could see that, but probably that would come after a bit of a bounce. And I think we are in for a bounce up into, all the way up to about 109K. It depends. The alternative would be continue to break through and stronger into 2026. I think that the 4-year cycle is, I don't want to say dead. I think it was delayed by 3-4 months. We had the government shutdown, we had the tariffs, and we had we've got a lot of different things in the credit market, liquidity sort of on hold. And so all of those just delayed where things could and should have gone. So I do think that we'll see a rate cut here into December. The FOMC is now showing over 80% chance that will happen. And so that's probably getting priced back into the market. It had flipped backwards again. Originally, it was about 3 weeks ago. It was 83, 84% chance. And then it went down to like 40% chance after the Fed's comments, recent comments. But now they're signaling that probably will do that. And also on the poly market here, I'll move that out of the way, but poly market showing, I think, 93% chance of the Fed Watch tool, or the Fed, where is that, all the way back here, the Fed lowering that, and some reason it's not loading, so I'll move that out of the way until it does. But essentially, poly market showing 93% chance. It's funny, it's here it is. No, it doesn't want to show that particular graphic. Okay. It's strange. Okay, never mind. You can look that up on Polymarket. Keep on going here. I'll come back to the daily chart, but I want to get through some of these other tools here. On the monthly chart, also can see that Head and Shoulders potentially playing out, coming down to 50K. Money flow and RSI both heading lower, and so no surprise there. Although if we are, that would signify we're getting some bullish divergence here on the price action. The big chart, the scariest chart in crypto right now is this monthly MACD. The crossover here is when I was adamantly saying, pounding the table to get out of the markets in January of 20. This is mislabeled. This should say January 21. And but previous to that was saying get into cash back in October and November, all the way back in here. So the crossover is kind of that nail in the coffin. The month is not over yet. So at this point, starting to see this rollover on the MACD. Have about 4 days left. It's November 26th, so 27, 28, 29, 30, 4 more days. If we get a strong enough rally, we could see this repaint and go back to green, give us a little bit more time. But this looks pretty bearish. It looks very much like the market cycle tops of the past, especially when that blue line crosses over the red line. I don't use MACD very often, but on the monthly chart, it's worth watching. And similarly, our signal line breaking red on a monthly time frame for the first time since January of 2022. So that's a bit of an ominous thing to see there. On the stable coins or USDT dominance tether here, we can see this is the same pattern from back before in the last cycle. Runs inversely to Bitcoin and total market cap. Getting some bullish alerts on the 4-hour, which we'll get to, and I'll just mute that on the other machine. So pulling that up on Sol and Bitcoin, so we'll look at that in a minute. All right, I do think we're in a bullish phase. We've been buying Bitcoin, Sol, and an altcoin I'll mention in a minute for a near-term rally. So depending when you see this, you see that happening as those alerts were just showing. Back to the study here. I've covered it before, but essentially when money flows into stablecoins, it's flowing out of Bitcoin and the total market cap. And so when this comes down and money's flowing out of stables, it's going into the markets. So when it reverses down here, we saw kind of a near-term high in May of 21, had that summer correction as money flowed into stables like Tether. Then that flowed back into Bitcoin into that November high. And then of course we had the correction and the crash. So I've labeled these zones in a similar fashion. And originally I was wondering if that might happen. Then I am still kind of wondering if this is what we get, but hoping that we can stretch it out here to get another high in sort of April. I think, certainly with Powell being replaced in May, we could see the markets push up into that time frame, and that would be ideal. But I am also watching to see if this happens. We did come up and retest this 6.25% area on USDT dominance, rejecting a bit. And if we come back down here and see somewhat of a recovery, but this is all in line with pushing up to around 100K, 108K Bitcoin, and then rejecting again. If that happens and we get above this level, then we're firmly into crypto crash zone. Right now we're in crypto correction zone, and if we can come back down into this area, maybe bull peaks again. But this is what I'm watching in terms of another signal for that. And of course, up on this range is the bear market. So I'll keep everyone updated on that. We'll get to some news here, and I might as well just touch on this briefly. Bitcoin, crypto has been suffering a little bit lately with the alleged sort of attacks on MicroStrategy, JP Morgan being pointed the finger at, and you guys might have heard of MSCI, which is an index sort of reporting fund suggesting that they will not allow Bitcoin treasury companies or companies that have too high a percentage of Bitcoin to be added to their index. And usually the S&P will follow, as I believe it's the NASDAQ 100 or one of the other ones, although MicroStrategy is already in the NASDAQ 100, so I'll have to double check that. What people don't realize, though, is MSCI is Morgan Stanley. Used to be the Morgan Stanley something index. And so JP Morgan, you can't trust what they're saying, and certainly they've been quietly buying all throughout when they were saying don't buy. They are probably manipulating this market to go back lower so they can buy some more. That's why there's a bit of a grassroots abandonment, or what's the word for people not wanting to use JP Morgan? It'll come to me, guys. But anyway, been a long day already. So the key takeaway is Bitcoin risks a slide potentially down in that region. We talked about 74K, 75K. They're suggesting a bear flag breakdown. I can also see concentrated buyers in that range, so possibly that could be where that happens. And the MSCI strategy tensions are adding institutional pressure. I think, this is probably short term. On this bear flag here, I don't know, they've drawn this a little bit they've drawn this instead of from a flagpole, they've drawn it from a moving average, and I'm not sure why they did that, but anyway, but I do see some confluence down around 77.4 with our buy signals, and right in that region, so I can see that area as a likely bounce point if we do push down from here instead of up on a weekly time frame. So coming back to this, I don't want to spend too much time on the news, but essentially they also suggest the Bitcoin could invalidate that bearish outlook, which I had already shown on a prior chart. So I don't want to get too far into this, and we can see that with our other signals. And so anyway, JP Morgan warning strategy is excluded. If strategy is excluded from MSCI, again, formerly the Morgan Stanley something index. So, do the math, follow the money there, and suggesting that then the S&P might also not include them. So what's the point there? What's the purpose? To crash MicroStrategy so that JP Morgan can come back and buy as much as they want. Quote here, they are trying to kill MicroStrategy to engineer a migration to their products for Bitcoin leverage exposure. Why is that? Because these brokerage, they make money on the back and forth entries and exits, and also on the spreads. So again, follow the money. In a statement, the company said even if Bitcoin falls to average cost basis, this would be strategy saying this, it would still maintain 5.9 times its asset coverage. And there's a lot of word salad here, financial word salad. But also the bottom line is Michael Saylor took on a lot of early debt at low interest rates. And last cycle, if you want to call it a liquidation event, it's not really the same, but it's $5,000 Bitcoin is where that would come in. So it's going to be a little bit different now. They've been continuing to buy, but they're really not in trouble. And the thing is, as Saylor says, that they don't qualify for these rules that MSCI is trying to say that companies that are primarily Bitcoin treasuries, MicroStrategy is still a very profitable software company. Yeah, boycott is the word I was thinking of. So people are boycotting JP Morgan, as they should, because any engineered attack on Bitcoin is an attack on all of us. So consider, banking where you choose to. But there's a lot of people that are boycotting at JP Morgan for that. The anger from the Bitcoin community following the news that the MSCI, formerly Morgan Stanley Capital International, that's the acronym, which is an index company that a lot of other funds use internationally, sets the criteria for indexed exclusion, and they're saying is likely to exclude crypto treasury companies from its indexes in January 2026. So a very important final vote or announcement January 15th. And I think we'll probably see some hesitation about for getting back in these markets from the institutions until there's more clarity there, even though Saylor is pointing out that they don't qualify as a pure Bitcoin strategy company based on their other financial products. They've been releasing other leveraged financial products like their Strike and Strife and several of the others that I'll show you in a minute. But anyway, so that'll sort out eventually. Plus, Michael Saylor, a very smart guy, he's now pointing out a new method of measuring and validate or valuing these debt companies or Bitcoin companies. So we'll see how that plays out. Anyway, let's see. Fred Krueger basically talking about how the enemy is the banking system, and how JP Morgan, after the financial crisis, has gone straight up, basically. So pointing a pretty strong finger over there, suggesting that JP Morgan hates Bitcoin, DeFi, and stablecoins, suggesting the Fed works for JP Morgan. These are some pretty strong accusations, but he's also been around a while. He's a smart guy, so if he says that, probably some truth to it. Of course, we will never know. And his also suggesting that it's going to be an epic battle because on the other side, against that, we have Trump, Bessent, and a potentially new Fed coming in May. Jerome Powell, his term is up, coming in May 2026. I think surely that will be a bounce point, or will probably rally into May, buy the rumor, sell the news, with a friendly Fed chairman coming in that will likely get the money printer going again. By then, we'll have several interest rate cuts more than likely, and a whole new reason for the markets to go higher. So we'll have to see, but they're still kind of in the Wild West of crypto, and none of this is clear. So Saylor breaking his silence, and essentially they did join the NASDAQ 100, but he's saying the strategy, the company is not a fund, not a trust, not a holding company, which passively hold assets. Holding companies sit on investments. They create, structure, issue, and operate financial products, and as well as a successful software company. So you can go and look at that yourself and for more information. But here's another one showing their financial instruments, STRF, which is Strife, Stretch. There's a number of these, Stark and Strand. These are all different levels of debt instruments and preferred stock instruments to generate money to buy more Bitcoin, but they've also figured out a way to pay, pretty nice APY on that, and I believe that's 10% per month per year. I've been watching it look too much DeFi. It's 10% per year, I believe, which is pretty good if it's guaranteed passive income. He says not particularly concerned about near-term liquidations for the largest Bitcoin holder, as their diversified funding and HODL strategy positions them well for sustained growth. And let's see, this is this person saying that. So, again, the strategy unveils new credit gauge. So creating their own version to value their own company. Why not create a new rule set, a new frame around the picture? And so after all these fears of a potential Bitcoin crash, because JP Morgan suggesting that MicroStrategy could lose up to $8 billion in outflows if they don't qualify for the new rules that they're trying to set through MSCI, right? And so Saylor basically saying, I don't think that's possible. Great interview. He's always cool as a cucumber, saying, look, I don't see how that's possible. We're everything I just said, we're a software company. We have financial instruments. But he's suggesting that it has a 70-year dividend runway, even after Bitcoin slide, rolling out a new credit rating metric to ease fears over digital asset treasury liquidation risks. So if I were to put my money on Saylor versus Jamie Dimon, I would put it on Saylor. But the banking system and Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan, we can just, let's call them the JPs, I guess, collectively. They won't go easily. So we'll have to see how this plays out. And I think that's all I wanted to cover on that there. So anyway, lastly, strategy rise up, Bitcoin crash, still on track for S&P spot. Matrix report suggests, this is a little bit of an older article, but you know, they're still on track there, apparently, even after this news. So let's see. So possibility of S&P inclusion in December still exists. So we have a lot of wild cards here. Lastly, I'll just touch on this. Financial Times, not a big proponent of crypto, happily pointing out the S&P has just downgraded Tether assets to the lowest level and suggesting that due to lack of disclosures and high-risk assets, it's true that Tether, two things. Tether always has FUD in going into the bull run, and it's always been a non-issue. However, they're suggesting here that even though we know Tether is one of the largest owners of U.S. Treasuries, which should give it some protection in the regulatory environment of the U.S., but they are suggesting in downgrading the assets from weak to weak from constrained because of having an increase in high-risk assets backed with stable coins, corporate bonds, precious metals, et cetera, but also lack of clarity in limited transparency is the way they said it, and risk management, risk appetite. So, you know, it's probably another non-issue, but essentially, we have U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick previously said, Cantor Fitzgerald, which chief executive says, et cetera, et cetera. S&P said reports on the reserve still do not disclose information on custodians, counterparties, or bank account providers. So, I mean, I think that you know, sort of valid on the surface, but Tether said it strongly disagrees with the characterization presented in the report, said that stablecoin has consistently maintained full resilience through banking crisis exchange. So they're kind of diverting the question, not giving more transparency, but pointing out that they have maintained all the way through, at least survived. However, in 2022, Tether failed to maintain its peg with the dollar after coming under heavy selling pressure, and interview at the time, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Trying to get through this quickly, everybody. By the way, if you like the content, please hit like down below, and we are having a Black Friday sale. I'm going to get to the charts here in a minute, but if you like this kind of video, I do one every week on Wednesdays at noon as part of my M3 active trader group, and part of that includes having chats, daily updates and alerts, and even coin picks. I was just commenting above, I was buying some new coins today. I think we are getting a bit of a bull rally, and video updates and things like Wyckoff patterns, etc. So an amazing special. It's been $2.99 a month for years, and we're doing a 50% off sale at $149 per month, and including our Retire Rich classes, which are every week on Thursdays. Great for beginners and hodlers, a little different format, but here is a video you can go watch if you go to moonstream.io slash Black Friday. And we'll just double check that. It looks like that. Moonstream.io slash Black Friday. The team is working on that. That's exactly what it is. It will redirect for you. But go check that out. Short video there from me. Block in your Black Friday rate at $149 a month. Normally $299 a month. I've got tons of testimonials in here from people and other traders saying this is the best service that they've used. Again, it's not Discord with lots of different comments. It's very manageable, timely updates, and including coin picks. So definitely check that out. Okay, so let me jump ahead here. Now, I'm going to go into the 4-hour and 1-hour charts here just to get an idea. Bitcoin Solana, seeing a nice little pump there, selling off a little bit. What I do like is we're getting on our average true range a bullish flip into entry mode on a 4-hour chart. Typically, those will precede nice moves on Bitcoin, especially coming out of the buy zones. Again, visualizing where the concentration of buyers and sellers are, buyers being in the green. So that's looking bullish here. If we go over to the daily chart, seeing a nice bullish engulfing candle on Bitcoin here, coming out of a buy zone. So the signals are looking up. One of our strongest ones is the trend strength indicator when it goes above 20. So I have an alert here above 20 and suggesting that's a time to buy. And this has been a very good timing signal that is proprietary for us. Again, cryptomastery.org. Check the link in the comments if you'd love professional level signals that are easy to use, easy to read. Essentially, we look for confluence. More green is good. We have a interactive cheat sheet where you can use that called the trade success checklist also, so it's easy to learn. We're seeing this turn green on our signal line. We're seeing the TSI going green coming out of a buy block. And I'll also going to pull up real quick the cycles indicator here showing that Bitcoin has confirmed a new daily cycle low back in here, and this green box here is where a weekly cycle low could be putting in, but these things combined tell me it's been highly accurate on projecting and predicting these daily cycle lows and getting a nice bounce out of them. Again, I think we could push up to around 98K. You can see a big block of sellers here, and then potentially come back down again like we talked about. So with that in mind, let's take a look at, we talked about total market cap here briefly, getting that same bounce. So in terms of things that might look good to buy, Solana, seeing a nice bounce out of its buy zone here. And what is interesting is that this has had a long-standing buy zone right along through here. All of last year, I doubled my Solana by buying in that 125, 130 range all the way back in through this range and buying and selling the bounce, buying the dip, selling the bounce. So a very strong area between here. If it does get down to that 100 range, also another place to be buying Sol. But right here, getting a bounce out of this buy block, I do think we'll see some follow through on that and possibly push up to that 185, 200 range. We'll be watching it on that shorter time frame as well. So not here to give financial advice, just giving you an overview, kind of what we've been watching, and keeping an eye on some of these other coins, one of which Pendle, seeing some nice recovery, but a big sell block up overhead. Probably need to take that out here. If we get an alt season, some are suggesting alts are going to start kicking off here. And so if we pop up to total 3, we can get an idea of that. That's everything except for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Problem is still a ton of sell pressure overhead. So I think we could see some limited upside on alts. And certainly we saw a little bit of that with Zcash and the privacy coins, but that has run into profit taking there. And again, you can see our sell block indicator has been so accurate in showing where the momentum's going to stop. All of this is sort of double sell blocks, concentration of sellers with limit sell orders there. So we were taking profits up in this range. I can prove that as well. We did catch it a bit late. I am looking for other coins that have this type of trading let me turn this back on, a pattern. So Zcash had this long-term trend line, resistance, and here resistance, breakout, and then the money flow came in. This is part of our early reversal indicator. This is money flow. Big buyers came in right at that point where it broke above its long-term trend line resistance. So looking for similar looking projects that have that kind of same looking chart, like ICP potentially, and another one we'll keeping an eye on here. Let's see, today Pendle looking kind of interesting, riding an upward trend line as support, and on the weekly time frame, oversold, bullish divergence. Targets on Pendle I have here at $7, $10, 16, and 20 based on a Fibonacci retracement. So, and then here on the daily, kind of seeing this nice bounce, and our early reversal indicator, that is a proprietary accidental discovery that we made. I believe it catches institutional programmatic buying and selling, and that is usually, hence the name, is the early reversal indicator is one of the first things that we're looking for. Everything else is kind of a mixed bag here, so I don't really want to get into the weeds with that. Anyway, hope that was helpful, you guys. Pay attention right now. I think we could get this counter trend rally and yet a bit of a bounce, but I think it's going to be short-lived here on the total market cap up to about 3.25 trillion. You can see I have an alert here, 3.27 sell. You guys use the total market cap as a, I'm not telling you what to do, but you can use this as a guideline of where these things can reverse. And if you'd like to get these signals, to see, like the Wizard of Oz, they all thought it was magic until they peeked behind the curtain and saw that it was a human, just a regular guy pulling the pulleys and gears. Same kind of thing. We have mapped out where the buyers and sellers are, and it's given us a huge edge in these markets. And if you want to just buy in green, sell in red, then that certainly is one of the ways you could use this. And you can find out more at cryptomastery.org. Again, just want to mention our Black Friday sale, which is at our other site there, which is moonstream.io/Black Friday. And you can get a huge discount on the M3 classes. There's a membership site where today, every Wednesday, I do a class like this at noon. We go into a little bit more depth, and I'm about to do a training on the Wyckoff distribution patterns. So that'll goes in the membership area. So check that out. It's moonstream.io/Black Friday. And please like the video, make a comment, and subscribe if you'd like to see more like this. Okay, cheers, everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.